Good evening, Emma.
Hi, you okay?
Yeah, very well, Emma. I think in this job, I meet a lot of very busy people, but looking at the life you have, it sounds like you might have just trumped everybody. This is a complete lifestyle, a vocation, a career, a job, a passion. It keeps you really busy.
It certainly does. I'm normally in bed by this time, though.
Yeah. Well, thanks for staying up so late. So, I wonder if there are two dogs in particular that stand out, and I know they all mean everything to you, but Lucky is one of them. Do you mind sharing the story of Lucky first of all, just to set the scene?
You sure? Yeah. I came back from uni, moved in with my parents again, and there was this really odd noise in the night, and I just never understood what it was. And one day it happened in the day. It sounded like an animal, but I didn't know it wasn't a fox or anything. I'd never heard anything like it anyway. I went round in the day when I could hear it to a neighbour's house. It was quite run down, and to my horror, in the back, I found this skeletal staffy chained to the floor, surrounded by her own feces and everything. And yeah, she was just the happiest little thing to see somebody, and that changed my life forever, really.
When was that, Emma?
That was 2001.
Yeah.
It was.
So 23 years ago, you'd come, and you were at university in Glasgow, is that right?
I was.
So you'd come back for the old care package at mum and dad's, and
Yeah.
I'd imagine at that point you'd always been a dog lover anyway.
I had, but I was never allowed them because obviously, parents worked full time. It wasn't sensible, all that kind of thing. So, yeah,
Had you really pestered them as well and tried?
I really, really had. Yeah. They weren't that happy when I found a neighbour's dog to look after. But anyway,
It's a funny thing that, Emma, isn't it? I was much the same when I was younger. My dad had been really upset by losing a dog when he was young and didn't want us to go through it. And he's a medical doctor, so for a doctor to make that decision is quite a big thing. But do you regret not having dogs when you were a kid, given the life you've had as an adult?
no, they were totally right, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I could never have imagined having this life, to be honest, because all I ever wanted to do was work with dogs. And at school, I'd say, oh, I'd like to, work with dogs. And they'd say, oh, there's no jobs in that industry, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I took a different path and then ended up like this anyway. So,
It was destiny. It was meant to happen. Here's the thing, Emma. You just mentioned it there about it was the right decision by your parents. Do you think that's maybe at the heart of a lot of what you do? Is people who maybe should think long and hard about having an animal, and maybe thinking a little bit more about the responsibility that's involved?
yeah, of course, there's a lot of impulsiveness. Obviously, COVID times when everybody suddenly had time and was at home. Obviously, everybody knows everyone went out and got a dog and prices skyrocketed. And that's what caused the problems that we're seeing today, which we've all been expecting, but not quite as bad as they are.
I wonder if you could give us a sense of that, Emma. But before we get into the story in more detail, just how challenging is your job at the moment at Dogs for Rescue?
It's always been hard in rescue. There's never enough spaces. Supply always exceeds demand. Dogs always lose their lives. But unfortunately now we're seeing it where rescuers are losing their lives because they can't cope with it. It's. I don't want to depress everybody. It's like the worst. Yeah, you can't imagine how bad it's got. We never thought we'd see things that we're seeing now, and I thought I'd seen all the horrors. But, that's why we have to do something.
I mean, that's such an important thing to talk about, and I know it is quite depressing listening, but the harsh reality is, and I couldn't believe it when I read the figure, 1,000 dogs per week are put to sleep in the UK. Is that an accurate figure?
Yeah, it's thousands of dogs. It's very hard. We're actually trying to help get the actual figures because it's many thousands. But yeah, it's a lot more than it ever used to be. Now that supply has gone so crazy and demand has gone so low.
And again, Emma, on a personal level, how do you manage to cope with that? Because I can tell that you get really connected and really involved with the animals in your care. So how do you look after yourself?
Well, it's the dogs that rescue me, to be honest. I wouldn't be able to carry on if it wasn't for being surrounded by them. I mean, the fact that they need you, you've just got to carry on anyway. And there's others waiting to get in. So the more you can help, the more you can help in the future. The more you find homes for, the more you can say yes to. So you just got to concentrate on the ones that you can. And honestly, they're just amazing. They live in the moment and they're just there smiling at you. Like gorgeous Odin, one of our beautiful disabled dogs, he just runs every time he sees sees me and gives me the warmest welcome. And no matter how bad my day is or what I've just read or had to say no to, when I know that no one else will be able to help that dog either, he just brings me back to the moment, and it kind of keeps us going. And I think because of the way we run it as well, we watch them all day enjoying their lives and just living, and we're trying to just be more dog, if that makes sense. And I think they can teach us a lot and rescue us every time.
And that probably brings us back to the story of Lucky, because, when you first met Lucky, you'd spend most of your time off caring for the dog. Could you, again, just tell us more about that connection that you managed to make with Lucky and how that became such a strong bond?
Yeah, she taught me everything. I'd never really known staffies at all. I had no preconceptions about them, which I found out obviously very quickly others did. She just loved me, and I can't describe the look she had for me, I suppose because I came and released her from that chain every time. And I felt guilty, obviously, if I didn't spend my time with her, but I hated my job, and I used to sit there chained to my desk, it felt like, watching the hours go by, waiting till I could go and see her. And I thought, she's just the same, sitting. She was just always sitting, just waiting. And, and I suppose that's where my life, kind of like normal life, ended, because there was always someone to look after then. So there was no other choice, really, but to, keep going once she'd died.
Yeah, well, it's quite an interesting metaphor, that, isn't it? Because was it computer science that you'd qualified in?
Qualified in a business degree, but they were just looking for computer programmers. That's what it was, the job that I went for. Ironic, really, I'm not the most technical person, but they just said it didn't matter what your degree was in, they would train you up. So I'd been there a few years, and obviously I went round one day and Lucky wasn't on the chain anymore. There was another dog there, so it threw me a little bit. I went to the front door and I asked the guy, and he just said she's dead. At which point I actually collapsed on the drive. And I've never collapsed in my life before. And I didn't realise until that point what that dog meant to me. And I realised that actually I needed her more than she needed me. And I couldn't see another dog go through what her life was, because she was being bred from, and it was getting, the puppies were getting sold for £20 in the loot at the time, which was heartbreaking for her and me to see. And so the next dog was called Sandy, and I just made that decision right there that I couldn't save Lucky, and that is my only regret. And I quit my job, bought a banger of a van on eBay, and decided I'd set up a dog walking company where I could take her with me every day to make sure that her life wasn't waiting on that chain for me all the time.
And Lucky was the epiphany. Lucky was the moment, the trigger, the catalyst to get you into this new life.
Yeah, her dying and my not being able to cope with that at all. I mean, you say about your father, death of an animal's crazy, and I could not go into work. I actually couldn't physically do it for a few days. And I obviously got pulled in as a disciplinary because this was a neighbour's dog. You can't get time off for grieving a neighbour's dog. But to me, I never realised what she gave me. I took her everywhere with me. I did everything I could. I actually moved out of Mum and Dad's, got myself a little flat in the hope that I could have her with me kind of overnight and all that. And yeah, I just so wanted her to be part of my life. But because of her sort of sacrifice in a way, so many more have had their lives changed. So, I can't regret it too much, although it will be the one thing I'll, never forgive myself for.
And you can't keep punishing yourself for it. And I know you clearly do, but, that Lucky is the start of this amazing story. And if you think of all the dogs that have been helped along the way, then it's quite it's a lovely, a lovely legacy for Lucky to leave, isn't it?
Yeah, I just wish she was the one.
I know.
Staffies, that's why I'll always help the poundies.
Yeah.
The bullies, they'll always have a piece of my heart. She taught me everything about that type of dog and how much they can love a person, no matter what people do to them. And I'll always fight for them because, they get the worst rep. And, obviously they were dying in large numbers when I started going into rescue. I'd go down the pound lines and there'd be just brindle staffy after brindle staffy, all of them who I knew would be PTS'd. But anyway.
Yeah.
Getting depressing again.
Oh, no, not at all. It's an important thing to talk about because, again, this is something we've discussed so much on Five Live in probably the last 18 months or so, but the bully breed legislation, that must have impacted your work as well. And you have a completely different side of that story to talk about by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it taught me a lot, everything I learned in rescue and about the dogs and them to watch it change, so I've been in it long enough that now you go to the pounds and it's all pocket bullies that, a couple of years ago would be sold for £5,000. Staffies were never seen as worth anything. But then you know, you go down now and we've gone through an entirely different thing where dogs were more important than drugs, you know, to gangsters and things. They were worth more and they were peddled in a different, and you watch that all happen, and now they're worthless again because the market's dropped out completely. So now these, what would have been extremely expensive dogs, are all dying the way the staffs used to, but staffs are just, they weren't worth anything. So they just kind of, not disappeared, but there's hardly any now, which is, it's rare. I never thought I'd see the day in my lifetime. Thought it'd always be them. But now we've got the bigger bullies. I mean, today I've had to take Sadie, our 1XL that we took on for life when the ban came in. I've had to take her for her second cruciate repair, which is just the stature of them. It's so unnatural for them. They have so many problems. Yet just because demand was for a bigger bully, look at what's happened. I mean, we have to learn from this. We can't carry on just using them as commodities and deciding that, oh, suddenly everybody thinks, oh, I want a bigger one. Mine looks bigger and better. You know, we're talking about lives and what it does to them, you know, even their form, you know, it's unnatural.
And that's the thing, isn't it? And something you must see firsthand is irresponsible breeding for those reasons can lead to straight back to your doorstep, because there are a lot of, you know, I don't know how to put it in the correct terminology, but lots of damaged dogs as a result of that irresponsible breeding. Am I right?
Of course. I mean, our vet bills have gone through the roof. Nearly all of them have got something wrong, you know, whether it's the breathing operations that they need, all that kind of thing. But nobody cares about that at the time. You know, it's all about the colour of them, you know, the mutations and what that's caused. We've got some really behaviourally damaged dogs from some of the crossing that's been done. And everybody thinks if you get a puppy, it's a blank slate, and it's absolutely not. And that's the shock, that the things that we need to help people understand is it's not the way they think it is. And that would be one of the key things I'd say straight away, because obviously we're at the other end where the dog gets to a year old and suddenly they've bitten the child, or, you know, they've fought with the other dog in the home. These have all been bought dogs, you know.
I'm really interested in your take on this. You know, how do you feel about the bully breed legislation? Do you think it's right, or do you think it needs to be altered or tweaked, or do you think there should be different legislation to stop the you know, like you say, the bad situations that you've just briefly mentioned happening again?
Of course, it's almost unbelievable to me that actually happened. I mean, I still struggle with it. I mean, the fact we've had to get tape measures out to measure the dog to decide if they were going to be dangerous, you know, as defined by law. It's insane. Like, it's the most insane thing I have ever come across. I can't believe as humans we have come up with this as a way of controlling something. It's like we're so far from understanding dogs these days. It just shocks me all the time. So I'd get, you know, obviously they tried to bring in licensing for breeding, but obviously it's difficult to enforce that. I think culturally we just need to change. We need to change what we're demanding, because we are the ones that cause the supply. You know, whatever people will fund is what happens. That's what these dogs go through, because there is a demand for them. We need to start, you know, demanding more from the dogs that we want, as in, you know, better conditions for their parents, you know, all the rest of it. If you were going to go down the breeding route, obviously I'm completely anti-breeding until every dog has a home. And I just think that is insane, that we know that healthy young dogs are dying, of which, you know, have no issues at all. I think the other preconception is that if a dog's in rescue, it's done something wrong. It's just generally people can't be bothered, or they've had to go back to work, or, you know, the dog's been with them for 2 years while they work from home, they're not coping, so, you know, throw the dog out. It's become very much disposable. But those dogs are totally wonderful dogs that could, you know, thrive in another home. But because everybody wants new, or the newest thing, it's, yeah, I'm rambling now. But
No, you're not at all. You're making perfect sense to me, because there's a vicious circle here as well, isn't there? Where, you know, you've talked about the cost of vet bills, which must be absolutely, you know, eye-watering for you to handle, but in a cost of living crisis for a family who might even have bought a dog in good faith, suddenly find that it's something they have no experience of. Is that playing a part in what you find in the rescue centre?
absolutely. And obviously dogs, like we had an old boy that we got from the pound the other day. He's obviously got testicular cancer because he hasn't been neutered. It's dumped straight in the pound, you know. And you just think, so we pick up the bill, you know, we'll sort the dog out. But, you know, I understand why, because you know, we are lucky. We've been in this over 10 years now. We've got a huge following and loads of people support us, thank goodness, because they pay for the vet bills. You know, really, if this was the early days, if I'd have only just started the rescue a year ago, we would not be able to fund the kind of things we need now. You know, Sadie's operation today, and the vet bills since, I don't know, a few years ago, it's gone through the roof. It's gone insane. It's just not even... You just know why poor people, like say the older people who are on a pension and they take their dog in, you know, especially if it's after hours or something, it is crazy money. You rack up thousands just over a couple of nights, and yeah, it's terrifying.
And, you know, let's really dig into that, because I think it's important to understand the figures involved, because as I understand, you know, the vet bills sometimes can top £3,000 a week, sometimes even more. Is that about right?
Well, Sadie's today would be £5,000 straight
That's
away.
one dog.
One dog in one day. You know, we have, I don't know, probably 100 dogs to look after at any one time, whether in foster or at the sanctuary or the other rescue centre. And obviously they all need care at different times, and some of them are there for life. I mean, we've had to have some, you know, have big operations, £10,000 worth of operation just for one dog. So it does make a difference with who you can help. You know, if we had lots of dogs coming to us, we're going to have to at some point make the decision, well, we can't help them, you know, because of the, you know, the cost. And obviously, as I say, we're very lucky with our supporters, but, you know, I'm just grateful for that every day, to be honest, because I would hate to be in a position, you know, loads of rescues are struggling at the moment, you know, even established ones have been going for years. I think because we do things slightly differently and we're a bit more, I don't know, we show more of what we do. I'm not sure why it is, but we are very lucky compared to others at the moment.
And to be absolutely clear about it, there's no government funding to help you or support you at the moment? No,
just the people who support us. It's always been the same.
And to think about where that money comes from, because, you know, just trying to get my head around how you keep this going on a day-to-day basis is a big pressure. So where does the money come from? Do you do a lot of fundraising, or are there other benevolent funds you can tap into?
As I say, we've just got such loyal supporters. So we've got like £5 a month is the Golden Paw Club, and they've been with us since the beginning. We started that, and it grows. It's still growing today, and they're the backbone of everything. So they're our bread and butter. They'll, you know, we know we've got that money coming in each month. Thank goodness. We just started a rescue lottery because we've got our second site now, which we knew this was coming, this nightmare that we're in. So during lockdown, when times were good and people were, you know, at home and whatever, we just showcased as much of what we could do. We actually found our second site during that time, and because we have no money, nothing to get a mortgage with, we put a fundraiser out there on Just Giving and said, right, come on, help us get our second site. And you wouldn't believe it, but we fundraised £500,000 to get a site, which then we could do up over the next 10 years, because it's got huge potential, 40 acres, you know, loads of buildings were on it, obviously no water, no electricity to it or anything, you know, sensible things, but they all came with time, you know, with the love and the passion that everybody's got. We opened phase 1 in November last year. The dogs moved up finally with me, and then we just started phase 2, which the lottery is going to help us towards as well, because obviously we can do so much more if we've got more. So we don't ever want to stand still and say, right, this is all we can achieve. We want to do, there's a million things we want to do, obviously change the world, you know, to change the world for the dogs and all that, but this is helping us. And I think because we've got that drive and we're doing something positive in a different way, we do sort of generate a lot more support. It's not the same old thing. And, you know, obviously we don't euthanize dogs, but, you know, that's just because that's the way, that's once we've dedicated our lives to them, that's the way it is. But it also means we've got to be careful about who we take. So obviously we can't help them all. So there are dogs getting euthanized because we can't help them, if you know what I mean. So I'm not trying to say it, you know, it's not our problem.
Is that the hardest thing you have to do, is saying no to dogs? Because I'd imagine your instincts and the person you are, you just want to take everybody, but it just doesn't sound like that's feasible.
That's the thing. You've got to be really careful, because it's really hard saying no, and I've had to get used to it, and I try and not look at the pictures, and that's awful because that's me avoiding it, but otherwise I carry it, and I need more Odin time to try and make me feel better, or, you know, remind myself, be more like Lollipop, who's just the happiest dog on the planet. He's only got 2 legs and he's absolutely mental, but he's so funny. You only have to be around him and he solves your problems. But yeah, if I never had to say no, that's the only thing I could wish for in my life, that if I never had to say no to another dog, because it all stays with you, especially the ones that you see, that's really hard. You know, one day I'll hopefully have a team that I can unfortunately sort of hand that over to, so I don't have to see it. But also I know that I know if I can fit them in. So at the moment, I'm still looking at most of the ones that come through. And if I can think of someone, there's loads of people that'll just, right, how you had that dog for us? Well, there's another one like that. I've become a bit of a salesperson, which I was never very good at that because I wasn't confident or anything. But now I'm like, everybody I speak to, I mean, have you got any dogs? I'm surprised I've not asked you already because...
I'm absolutely obsessed, Matt. I've got a working retriever called Jock, and we got him 3 years ago because we had a Cocker Spaniel for 12, nearly 13 years, and when he died, it's the most upset I've been about anything in my life. And thinking about it, we probably kept him alive a wee bit too long. He had loads of trouble with his eyes and his ears, and it was a selfish thing because we couldn't handle the thought of him not being... We had him before kids, and the acute grief that I felt for Fletcher, our dog. And it's interesting to hear you talking about taking time off work because I couldn't function. I remember saying to the kids, right, you're going to be upset because this is going to happen. It happened on Boxing Day, and I tried to prepare them for the grief of this moment, and they were looking at me when I was unravelling in front of them in absolute ribbons. And it is the most upset, more upset than I've been about people in some cases. So Emma, I have no idea how you do this. It really is a remarkable career and life you're leading. But do you ever worry maybe that you are too attached, because you must have a really thick skin to cope with that on a regular basis?
I don't think it's a thick skin. I still cry a lot over them, and I kind of, as I can only describe that the dogs have taught me to just live in the moment. So on the way here, I literally got a voice note about a dog, and it was like, she's going to be sent back to Romania. You're our only hope. And, once again, I asked for more information. I didn't actually say no. But, if I can help that dog, obviously I will. But it's the fact that then I'll go home later on and Sadie will be back from the vets and I'll be able to lie with her and just live in her moment because she needs this recovery time now. And I think that's taught me so much. And it's, people go to meditation or all these things. I think you just need to be around dogs more and be more dog. And it sounds silly, but honestly, it's changed my life, and it's made me able to, enjoy life at times where you could go under with this. And I understand why, people who work in the pounds who don't get to see the happy endings, who don't get to live with the dogs enjoying themselves, who are just fighting all day, every day for those dogs' lives, they are the ones that I, feel upset for, because I'm lucky the way we've created our safe bubble. That's my heaven on earth. The dogs have given it to me. I never would have lived on a farmland with loads of acres with loads of dogs. I mean, me as a kid, that would be my absolute dream. And now I look around and I have to pinch myself. Yes, okay, I might have some parts of the job that I absolutely detest, but wow, what have I got? I might not have a life or don't go anywhere, don't have a holiday, but all those things people think I miss, I do not miss that at all.
Genuinely. Because I read as well that you hadn't been on a holiday since Turkey in 2004. Is that right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think I went to Ireland to see my family at some point in the last couple of years, maybe for a weekend. But holidays as such, they're just not on my radar. I just wouldn't know what to do. I've got to do something positive every day for them, and then they repay me 1,000,000 times over.
God, it's amazing, Emma, to hear your story. Would you mind taking me back then to how you got the business set up? Because again, when hearing you talking about the second centre, it must have brought back a lot of memories about how you started, because you had to generate some money, borrow. I was going to say steal, but that might not be fair. But you had to generate enough money to start your business, and it's fascinating how you did that. So can you just tell us how you got this up and running?
Well, obviously there was the van purchase on eBay. That was
the banger.
Yeah, honestly, the engine fell out within the first week, but let's not talk about that. So I bought that and I set up a dog walking business. Now, this was in the early days because I'd looked up to get Lucky a walker, you see, while I was at work. But I couldn't afford it because it was more than I was making an hour in my job. And I was like, what? How is that possible? So anyway, I realised then later on there's a lot more to it than just that. But anyhow, I decided, right, that's what I'm going to do. So I had my clients and I was one of the first dog walkers. I had a big pink paw on the van. Everyone knew who I was, and then word of mouth. And suddenly I had a whole team. It was not a team of people, a team of dogs, obviously. And then I set up a dog daycare, which there wasn't one of. So that was another battle. It feels like there has been quite a lot of battles because dog daycares weren't a thing in the UK at the time, and everyone thought it was crazy and you're not allowed to do it, but nothing said I couldn't. So I just gambled and got a unit and set up and said, well, where does it say I can't? So there we go. Anyway, now we're just moving into our third unit for the daycare. So the daycare then, the idea of that was the dogs get all day rather than just 1 hour out in the day for working owners. And I could take my lot with me. So I had my Sandy, who was one of the naughtiest dogs ever, but she taught me everything.
And then Sandy came after Lucky, right? So
Sandy was the one on the chain when I went round that day
Lucky.
when I was expecting to take Lucky out, and she was there. And at first I couldn't bear looking at Sandy because she wasn't Lucky, but I couldn't also just leave her there. So I felt like I was giving everything up for Lucky's memory and also taking Sandy along with me just to ensure I didn't feel guilty. But me and that dog became so close. She taught me so much. She was absolutely nuts, but I'll love her forever. And yeah, she set up the rescue with me. I'd learned everything through the daycare from Sandy because of her. She was so... I don't know how to say it, but like she was so dog. Like she taught them everything. She was the boss. She sorted it all in a very fair way. And I just watched in amazement at what she was able to do. And to be honest, when I first got her, I thought she was quite aggressive. I had actually muzzled her because I didn't understand at that point what she was doing. And then I realised, so I understood that. And then...
And it became a profitable business. That's the thing, isn't it? You created a profitable business that was turning a decent revenue.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's grown and grown. So now we've got over 100 dogs a day go to daycare. But the best thing about that is that when I go there, loads of them are from our rescue. So that's anyway how we got into rescuing, because one of my customers, I was trying to help UK rescues, and nobody wanted me to do it because, again, I was keeping them together and all that, and they didn't think it was the right thing to do. So it was unbelievably hard to set up a rescue in the UK. Anyhow, one of my customers just rescued this foreign dog from Bulgaria, and she walked in like she'd had 2 broken legs, and she walked in the room with a real hobble. But instead of being like the UK dogs, which walk into a pack of 50 dogs and kind of have a mini meltdown and wonder what on earth's going to happen to them and think they might die, and, you have to help them through it like a kid at school the first day, this girl just waltzed in like, hi, and just walked through it and I go, what's going on here then? And I just sort of looked at her and thought, but she was a street dog from Bulgaria. So she was like, dogs, yeah, no problem. People, yeah, absolutely terrifying. But, dogs, no issue. So I contacted their rescue and said, do you have any dogs that you need? Obviously, you can have as many as you want because nobody will rescue them over here. So we started with foreign dogs just by chance. But they've actually helped rehabilitate the UK dogs. So like I put up, I think it was today or yesterday, Lola, a staffy, obviously, had come in, unbelievably antisocial. I had her only a week up at the rescue where I would let the dogs play in their field and then she was in the other field. You wouldn't believe it. She's now running to try and play with them up and down. Like she wouldn't know what to do with them quite yet if she got to them. But she's trying to put the stick through the fence to sort of offer to the other dog. Yeah. This is a dog who she was clearly terrified of the others, didn't know how to react, and so just had a complete breakdown, which is how they kind of get to that stage of being so reactive. And all it was that she thought she had to get in there first. She thought they were going to get her.
See, that's fascinating, Emma, because that requires a lot of confidence and experience on your part to know that's safe. Because, for somebody who considers himself to be a dog lover, I would have been terrified of that idea because there might have been some outward aggression shown by the dog. But it sounds like it didn't take too long. So how do you know how to measure that up and how safe it is to let the dogs integrate like that in a big crowd?
Well, I didn't. So all ours were on one side and she had the bigger field. Right. So at first she would just ignore them. Well, that's when I knew, you see, when she was on a lead, she was doing her behaviour reactivity, which loads of people struggle with, and dogs can develop it even when they are really dog social. So it's hard for people to understand, is my dog actually social or not? Because if they react on a lead, it doesn't necessarily mean they're not social, but they never want to give people the dog the chance. That's something that we want to help with in phase 2 anyway. But so what we did was let her off the lead, and she didn't go near the fence because obviously she thought, oh, hello, they might get me, and then curiosity took the better of her, and then you'd play ball with her, and then she'd take the ball a bit nearer the fence and see is anybody going to come and get her. And then she started just going up to see them and investigate, and one dog started running because our foreign dogs are brilliant at helping rehabilitate, as I say. One dog started running up the fence, so she starts chasing, and then she realised it's just a game, so they're just running up and down the fence on the opposite side. Now I would never let her in because she wouldn't understand yet what to do and she might panic and tip over, but for a week, from that dog wanting to see a dog and wanting to kill them to actually actively going away from me and her favourite thing of playing ball to go over there and to actually integrate just gave me so much hope. And I tell you, that was one of the best days I've had in rescue for ages, because it's that hope and it's that ability that they can change. And if we can show that they can change, there's no dog stuck and labelled as aggressive or reactive. And there's another one, Hugo, another staff. He came in exactly the same. We muzzle trained him after he got used to them behind the fencing. And then now he's gone and he lives in a home with another staff and they cuddle up on the sofa together. Now this dog looked like he was going to annihilate anything else, you know? And you think, wow, we just got to give them that opportunity. I'm not saying it would happen for all of them. I'm not saying there's some that, you know, wouldn't be much more difficult. I'm not trying to pretend it's easy. But if you've got the right setup and the right dogs, it just shows what's possible. And all you need is what's possible to then hopefully inspire other places to then be able to do the same kind of thing.
And you just discovered that by accident from a Bulgarian dog who came in and could socialise and lead by example.
Exactly. So the dogs have taught me everything. Like, I do not profess to know anything really about, you know, training dogs on lead or being anything like that. It's about watching them. It's about giving them choices. It's about making them feel safe. We've built our whole rescue around tunnels and exit points, basically. You give them safety and you give them places to run away and hide and all the rest of it, then you encourage them to move forward. And as long as they're feeling safe, they can make the right decisions. The problem is we often take away that from the dogs. So actually it's really important, and there's nothing really that you can do at the moment, you know, to give them that freedom. And that's what we want to sort of encourage in life, because then they will make the right choices.
And that's the key principle, isn't it? The cornerstone of what you do is that term kennel free. So for anybody who's not heard that before, because it is slightly different to what you might think about when it comes to rescue centres, but kennel free is at the heart of it. What is it, Emma?
So it started off with my house with 2 acres of land, and basically the dogs sort of live in the house and play out on the land, and they live together. So there was about 5 lounges in this derelict house thing I bought. It was really good because it was just set up as though it was meant to be. So we have couches, everything that a dog would see is normal. And then they just go out and play in the fields together. So we just extended that more and more. So now we've got a couple of rehab caravans on there that the staff live in, and then the dogs can go in there. And you've got dogs of different energy levels. Some are really fearful and need a bit more. Some need a lot of space. Some aren't that social and might only have a few friends. So, and then we've created these different areas where they can go. So a lot of our dogs are so damaged they may never be able to be touched or go on lead. But if you create different areas with like sandpit area, or, you know, the tunnels and the hills and all that, or leave a bit rough, and you can rotate them during the day, then it's creating so much enrichment for those dogs, and they can smell the others, and then you mix up the pack a bit, and then you bring the toys out, or you do a different kind of game at a different time, and you just creating a world for them where they feel safe, and then they can change, and then they can trust, and they learn off each other. You know, you put a dog on their own and try and bribe them, but if they're watching the whole time, you know, you get some magical breakthrough moments.
Tell me about them. You know, they're the moments that I'd love to know about, the break, because you must meet, like you say, sometimes you can't even look at the pictures, some dogs that have had a terrible, terrible time. So those breakthrough moments must stick with you. Can you tell us about a few of them?
Absolutely. I mean, there's just so many, but my head's full of them. It's when, like, you get the first wag of the tail, say, or something like that. Like, it's just incredible. Or a dog takes a treat for the first time. I remember one used to hide behind my couch, and then all of a sudden one day she just looked at me, came round from the other side of the couch, and then jumped on the sofa next to me, just as though that's it. And it was like, we've been doing this for months. Why today? You know, I didn't understand it at all, but
that's a breakthrough. That's a eureka moment. You know, you must. And again, I can sense you're an emotional person. But did you shed a bit of a tear? Or, you know, who do you share those moments with?
Well, with the staff, really. Yeah. I mean, we've got this group chats, and you wouldn't believe it because we're all with the dogs all the time, but we share everything that we get, because you're always working with somebody different. Or it's like, look what happened today. Like today, Rico, one of our newest ones, he actually took food from one of my helpers' hands. He's not been able to go anywhere near, and it was because he was up high on the bits that we'd built. So we've created these big hills for them, and she stood at the bottom handing the treat up, and I think because he was up high and she was down low, she didn't seem as threatening. So then and she was videoing it, so we were all able to share in the joy. And that is such a huge deal. I mean, they'll take it if you chuck it or if it's just in front of them, but to actually do that, and you can start then stroking their little faces, and you're sort of exchanging it for things. And you know, they've got the choice to run away, obviously. They're not backed into corners or anything, and they've got the friends, and that always helps, because Million, one of the soy dogs, she's only got one eye, but she's a little bit more confident. So she came over. So then all of a sudden it was I want the treat. No, I want the treat. And they forget that they're absolutely terrified of you, and suddenly they're just, you know, carrying on as though they're normal dogs. So it's amazing. You
feel to me like the Sir Alex Ferguson of Manchester United, when he could name every player that was in the youth squad and the first team squad and the second team. I mean, how many dogs do you think you could name in your care right now? I get a feeling you might get you might just about get all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have, as I say, 100. I mean, I could easily go through them all. I wouldn't bore you with that. But speaking of Alex Ferguson, actually, he was great. When we did our fundraiser, for the new site, he actually did a little video asking people to support us, which was amazing.
And that's brilliant to have, isn't it? Because imagine you have to rely quite heavily on that. I was going to mention, there's a charity in New York that I met, the New York Second Chance Rescue. And they're amazing because, much like yourself, they find dogs in just the worst condition you could ever imagine. And they actually share a lot of it on social media. And when the pictures come up, you're always shocked and upset. But then you see how amazingly resilient animals are and how they can find that health again. And I think it's worth reminding people, isn't it, that there aren't, there's no such thing as a lost cause, really, is there? Because you must see huge improvements in their health and well-being once they get the care and nurturing they need.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one we've had was recently Luna. We were just called by someone we know who looks for lost dogs, and this little girl had been tied to a park fence in the early hours of the morning. Now, this isn't something that used to happen a lot, but it happens all the time now. Anyway, she came to us, and honestly, she could hardly walk. She was a skeleton. And yet she still wagged her tail at me, and she'd never met me. I mean, this is just typical bully, isn't it? She couldn't even run for a ball because she was so weak. And the pictures were horrifying. I mean, the RSPCA have been, involved and everything. It's been really serious. Yet, honestly, she was always happy, even though she could hardly walk. I couldn't believe it. But now she looks so different, and she's had such a huge following. I mean, I think we put a picture of her up today, and somebody just put, "This has just made my world, just seeing her again." After the state she was in and everything. She's got a home now and that. And yeah, she was so moving to see that.
That's amazing, Emma. I skipped ahead a wee bit because I never got the chance to let you finish about how you paid for this, because your mum and dad really leaned in, didn't they? And they gave you money they probably had other plans for to get you on your way. So how did that conversation go? How did you persuade them?
Well, I'd already had to borrow money off them to set up the daycare because I didn't have the rent. You had to come up with like 3 months' rent. There's just no way. Obviously, I was living kind of hand to mouth. And I remember them saying, "This better work, otherwise we're never helping you again." It was a bit like, seriously, this is, thousands of pounds. What are you doing to us? But, I paid them back as soon as I could. But before I set up the rescue, I made sure that I paid them back straight away. So they knew that I had the passion. They knew I was going to do it. They'd seen me buy the van off eBay and make a success of the dog walk. And, it's kind of like I'd proved it. So then obviously I needed a lot more to buy this house with the land. So, basically I just, I asked them, and they're just long suffering. They know they're not going to have any grandkids. They know now that, they never really wanted a dog, and now they have to come and see me, and I've obviously got 40 of them, and they're always going to be in the room, and there's no escape from them.
But again, when they see the job you're doing and the care and the love and the team of people that you've built around Dogs for Rescue to make it all tick, they must be delighted that money's it's gone so far, hasn't it? It might seem like a lot of money, but if you break that down over, what's that, 20 years now, is it?
So the rescue was set up just over 10 years ago, but right. It'd been nearly 20 for the daycare.
Yeah, and I mentioned, that staff and that team you put together, because you must rely so heavily on volunteers as well as your full-time staff. So how big is it now? I think it's at 10 full-time staff?
Yeah, and the volunteers are mainly like the walkers for the handycans or anything. That's our disabled bunch. We had staffy cuddlers, that people were great with that. And then obviously fosterers, like the fosterers are key to everything. They save those lives because it means as soon as they take another, I can save one that's going to die tomorrow. It's absolutely key for us to be able to move forward. And they always help by, showcasing those dogs and doing little reports for them online or whatever. And people really understand it. And then it's safe to do because we provide all the food, we provide the backup, loads of people, we were talking about vet bills. People can't afford to have dogs these days, but they can because we'll pay for it if they can just offer that home, that security, that love while they're waiting for a trial, because it helps the dog so much. It helps us, creates a space. So, yeah, if anybody's thinking about it, obviously fostering's a great way to go.
Well, there you go. There's an important message tonight, isn't it? About, you might not be in a position to take a dog full time, but fostering might be the sort of entry level where you can really make a difference just by doing that part of it. And what does that involve then? If I came to visit you at Dogs for Rescue and said, I'm interested in helping, how can I help? How would I do that?
I'd be asking you a lot of questions about your dog, and I'd say, right, let's find him a friend or two, because 3 is the magic number, don't forget. And then you'd bring your dog down. Obviously, we'd check out like how much free time you had, what kind of dogs you were after, energy level, any kids in the house, all that kind of thing, any cats. And then we've got all our profiles of the dogs and we test them because obviously we're with them all the time. We know who's fearful and who wouldn't be suitable. All those kind of things. So it doesn't matter who or what age person they are, or even if you live in a flat, it's about finding that right match. A staffy does not care if they have to go out to the toilet on a lead, because someone lives in a flat, for example. They just want to be with people. So, I know that other rescues have, a bit more red tape around them and things. And it's not about us being blasé about things at all. It's about being sensible. That old boy that came in with the testicular cancer, he just wants somebody to sit on a couch with. We'll pay for his operation. He's going to enjoy his last years. Luckily, he's gone out already, thank goodness. And it was actually somebody who'd lost their dog who contacted me to donate their dog's things, which happens a lot. And I have to be really strong and say, look, I know this is going to sound awful, but I know what you're feeling like. And the only thing that will get you through is having another furry friend around. And it sounds so alien and it sounds like crass or that I'm being flippant about it, but it's come from personal experience. Like when I set up the rescue, this is the bit I didn't tell you actually before, I set up the rescue in October 2013. Sandy's owner had died a couple of years before, so she actually became mine. And she died next to me in bed a week after I set up the rescue. She just passed away. And it was
sleep.
like,
yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it. But I'm okay with that. Unlike Lucky, I gave her everything. I gave up everything for her. She continued in her life with me. Now, I'd just taken in as an emergency case this Bulgarian girl who was paralysed and had been brought over and was in an unsuitable place. And it was meant to be for a week's foster, Sherry. Anyway, she was disabled, she was incontinent. I had to get up, I had to carry on. I do not know if it wasn't for Sherry, if I'd have been able to carry on with the same way I did, because she needed her nappies changing, she needed lifting, cleaning, putting out on her wheels. That dog saved me, and she only died a couple of years ago, and she saved me every day. So I can honestly say it's the only thing that gets you through it, because you've just got that empty heart and that amount of love, and you wouldn't believe it, but it doesn't matter. You'll never love another one the same at all, but you can love again.
So it's worth reminding people, isn't it, about the benefits of rescuing, because that's something I would never have considered. And again, routine's such a big part of it, isn't it? Having something to give you a purpose.
Exactly. And then you're pouring your love into something that really needs you. So that you think you're doing it for them, but you won't believe it, like within a short space of time compared to the emptiness and the comparing and everything. I have actually convinced this person to come and take a dog. And she did. And she just said to me the other day, she went, it is the best thing. She goes, I can't actually believe I'm saying this. And obviously she might not keep that dog forever. She might, some people get attached, but actually to help others, sometimes you want to avoid that heartbreak. For me, it's a bit easier because some of these guys, they come and they go, and, I see them go on to better things. I know that we'll be there for them if it doesn't work out, but for fosterers, if it's not the right match, we just say it's fine, come back and choose another. It's about making sure it's right for people. If you take a dog, say from a kennels, and it doesn't work out, it must be awful for people to have to put that dog back there, because the guilt would be horrendous, and it put you off ever trying again, and it put anybody else off that knew you. Yet what we do is the dogs come back in and they're so happy. It's really embarrassing actually, because you often get a lot of people crying because they do want it to work out, and it might be that the cat's decided no, the dog's not allowed to live with them, or whatever has happened. And the dog just races off like, oh, hi, I'm back with my pals. And then the people are left on the lane absolutely distraught. But I go, well, yeah, but it doesn't mean that another one isn't going to work. So obviously sometimes it takes 2 or 3 to get the right match. Whereas if you go and buy one, you can hope that it'll be all right, but you haven't got that backup if it isn't. And, and also it's really easy to assess an adult dog as for suitability. And especially if you've got another dog, people buy a puppy, but oh no, those poor dogs that end up like that. It's just, anyway. Yeah.
But it's also worth remembering sometimes that, as you say, it doesn't work out, but it feels like you're really well equipped for that eventuality.
Yeah, because the dogs are happy, and that's the thing. And actually all it means is we've learnt a little bit more about them. I mean, you get the occasional time where the dog doesn't cope as an only dog, and we do try and warn people. We say, obviously, we know this much about them. This is the things we don't know. separation anxiety, that can develop even if they don't have it when they go. So they can get used to people, they can start, especially staffs, they're flipping terrors for it, because they just desperately want you to be there. But it's great because those people tell us that. And then when we're looking for the actual home, we know a lot more about those dogs. So we're able to give people these benefits of information that we wouldn't have had from them living together as a pack at the rescue. We don't want them to become institutionalised. We want to give them the best chance to live their lives, and we've got to free up the spaces for the others. So it's not a case of we just take them in and keep them, at all.
And again, it sounds like a tricky question, so please, bear with me. But, how does it operate at the moment? Is it almost a one in, one out? I mean, how do you control that? Because it feels like there's an awful lot of demand for your expertise and your services.
Yes, we are always just over capacity. It's always one in, one out. And then somebody else will come back from years ago, say somebody passes away and they leave their dog that they got from us, and obviously they come back in. So there's a lot of unexpected stuff. But because of the way we run it, we make sure we're able to cope with it. It's never going to be that all 2,000 of them are going to come back on the same day, hopefully. But, there's ebbs and flows. So it's really about the mix as well. You could have hundreds and hundreds of street dogs, and they're just so easy to have. My beautiful bullies that I love, if I got 10 of them back in a day, I think I'd be... that might make me cry. Much as I love them, they're not as easy, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
One thing we talk about again on 5 Live quite a lot is loneliness in the country. And it feels like there's a lovely marriage here potentially for people struggling with loneliness. How do you find homes? Because I'm fascinated how your job and how your day splits up, because you'll be wanting to spend as much time, I'd imagine, as possible with the animals, but you've also got to consider the fundraising, you've got a business to run effectively. There's a lot on your shoulders, but I'd imagine rehoming is the bit that is the ultimate goal. So how do you focus on that part?
So it's a part of each day. I literally wake up in the morning, straight away on the computer, looking at any emails that have come through, any potential flags. So get excited if I see one that's for like Lola the staffy. I'm like, excellent, ring them up, see when they can come down. And it's like, as I say, I go back to that salesperson thing, and then I'm like, right, they're coming. They've got one dog already. Great. I've got at least a home for one dog here. Might be able to do a dog and a foster. You never know. Always pushing for that extra space. Exactly. It's like I'm on some sort of commission. I tell you, I was never good. I had to do, when I was in Glasgow, I had to do telemarketing. I was absolutely rubbish because couldn't make anybody do anything they didn't want to do. But now they think they don't want to do it, you see, but I know that I'm right.
I'm worried I'm going to take a dog at the end of it.
I know. Like, honestly, you'll have to
thinking
come back to us.
So you're on the computer early bells.
Yes.
On the computer early bells, connecting people, trying to get folk in for visits. And that's how the day starts every day.
Yes, and I have set up my kitchen area that I have a big window that looks out over the dog play field, so I don't get to miss out on it, because unfortunately a lot of my time is going through spreadsheets, looking at my waiting list, looking at my foster list, looking at the dogs coming in and matching, which isn't the most rewarding, as I say, for people who love dogs, because you want to be with them. But if I can just look up and see them all, they make me laugh. With Lollipop will run past the window, stop and just stare at me for a second, bark, and then run off, and it just makes my day. Yeah, seeing them play and seeing the transformations happening. I mean, it might distract me for a minute, but then it's the joy to go back to the list and go, right, and then I've got obviously other people, Amy, Becky, everyone there, like doing their bit to keep those dogs happy, and then also to help get them into homes, which is the key, really.
Yeah. I hope this doesn't sound like another argument that's going on in the country at the moment, but it sounds like there are so many dogs in the UK who need some help, or to be rehomed, or your expertise and your love and your care. But you're still bringing loads of dogs from overseas, Bulgaria, around Europe. How does that balance out, and how do you make a decision about who comes in? It's such a tricky one to get my head around.
Yeah, the tricky thing is, so dogs in the UK obviously have been bred and bought and given up and all the rest of it. And any that are, breed specific, cockapoos, etc., have got more of a chance with other rescues. Any that are sort of really difficult with other dogs, obviously we'd only be able to hit one of them at a time, because the rehabilitation of one of them is quite hard. So we try and sort of say, right, we've got a number of bullies that we can help, obviously always. So say 10 at a time, we'll be helping 10 bullies at least. And then it's about having the right combination. So the foreign dogs always help us, but to be honest, people think we always bring in foreign dogs. It's quite rare, really. We tend to take foreign dogs that get stuck in the UK. So, for example, we got a little disabled one that had only been in the UK 2 weeks, This was only last week. She was absolutely terrified. She was giving up because she was too big. She's not big, she's little. But anyway, she only got the back 2 legs. The front 2 legs are completely deformed. So she's called Roo, and she looks like a kangaroo and bounces like one. And as soon as I saw her, I knew she'd fit in with our lot. So we've taken her, but that was because she had no other option. And if I went through the list of the dogs we've got from abroad, most of them come through UK kennels. Now, this is because people were bringing in dogs at times, giving them up, and then they end up in the UK system, which is, I totally understand why people get upset about foreign dogs, ending up in the UK system. It is so bad for foreign dogs. Kennels destroys dogs at the best of times, but for foreign dogs that aren't used to being in isolation, it absolutely cripples them, whereas we know that we can help them. So they do form a big part of our pack, but as I said before, they also have this unique ability to rehabilitate UK dogs. Most UK dogs, unfortunately, end up quite antisocial because of, especially if they've been in the pounds, it's terrifying. All they can hear is the other dogs barking. They get no real exercise, and then they become reactive very quickly. They become defensive. So they play a big part of our rescue, really. And for us, there's no borders. Like, dog's a dog in need. It doesn't really matter to me where they come from. At the end of the day, I know that the street dogs we've rehomed are the easiest dogs on the planet. Now, for people who have got other dogs, cats, kids, whatever, some of these street dogs, they are the gentlest, kindest. They don't have separation anxiety. They don't even understand what that is. They've never had anything good, so they're so grateful for absolutely everything. They're so different, and it's hard to explain to people, but the history is we've rehomed nearly 2,000 of them, and they make the most amazing family pets. And as I say, a lot of them come to our daycare now as well. They get a reduction for rescuing a second dog from us, etc. So, they sell themselves. And I think the foreign dogs have a lot to teach everybody about dogs. Our dogs have just become a morphed version of what we've bred, and all the problems that we bring, and even our kenneling system causes them problems. Yet these others are more natural dog, and I think we need to sort of let them teach us a bit as well.
It's interesting to hear you describing the kennels there and that noise of the barking, but if you had to describe the atmosphere and the ambience and the noise in one of your rescue centres, what would you say it's like?
Well, the newest site is silent. Like, we know we've got neighbours and you can hear everything. I can hear them sneezing from the other side, even though it's a farm and we've got 40 acres. The sound carries. The dogs aren't stressed at all. They play, and we have all the sound on the videos. We don't hide that. So you'll be able to watch all our videos of the dogs playing. You might hear the very occasional bark, but because they're not stressed, they're just getting on with life. They'd only bark if, say, we don't have people sort of coming up to the fence to see them, etc. That would make them bark. It would frighten them. But other than that, they're happy, and you don't realise how silent, happy dogs are.
Yeah, it's great to hear that. And 2 questions for you, right? What do you need to continue the work you're doing, and what does the future look like, do you think, for Dogs for Rescue?
We've got huge plans. Obviously, the more people that know about us, the more that people can help spread the word. That's amazing. Follow us on the socials. We've got phase 2 just starting. We started the demolition. That'll be a massive centre that will help rehabilitate UK dogs. It will help us help other UK rescues turn some of their rescues. We're hoping to be able to help fund some of their rescues turning into kennel free. Not saying that we'll be able to do it in the short term, but these are our major goals. The more we can achieve, the more we can change the future of dog rescue for rescue dogs, and just generally for people's understanding of their own dogs, what their own dogs need. I think it'll go along with welfare, culture, everything. It kind of feeds into the same thing.
And what more do you think can be done to protect dogs in this country?
I think that it needs to get out there how bad things are. I think it is still, everybody says the rescue crisis, and I think people have become a little bit numb to it because they don't see the faces or see the ones that we're losing every day. It is depressing, but I think the more we can say, this has got to stop now. Like, that happened, yes, COVID happened, it all rocketed one way, then the downturn which we were expecting, but now going forward it's like one of those things, you never want to see this happen again. What can we learn from it? We can learn that we need to understand dogs better, and they're not just commodities to be just thrown away. It's just we've gone too far, you know what I mean? We've got to come back to reality.
And Emma, I don't think there's anybody in any doubt about how you feel about it, but I'd just like to finish by asking you how much it means to you to help these dogs and play a part in their life.
I honestly don't know what I would do with myself if I didn't have them. I do worry about when I get old, like older. Obviously, I'm old now, but
Not at
you
all.
know, because I don't know what I'd do with my day. You know, if I was unable, I'm hoping that they'll have me in a corner somewhere, able to just still watch what's going on, and give me the radio, make sure I'm still bossing everyone around, going right, put them out there. They've had enough now. You know what I mean? I'll be in with the disabled lot, the handicans, and in a chariot, like with them lot. Hopefully, that's my dream anyway. But yeah, I can't imagine it. It's just given me everything that I could have ever dreamed of without. And the thing is, it's not. I didn't do it selfishly. I did it all thinking I was doing it all to help them. And it was only years later that I realised actually, this is like a dream for me. Obviously, it probably isn't for everybody, but honestly, I'd say it's a great quality of life if you can do it.
Well, Emma, I've got absolutely no doubt that that's how you'll see out your days, surrounded by animals who are much happier for having you in their life as well. And keep doing what you're doing. It's an inspiring charity, Dogs for Rescue, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you tonight. So, all the very best to Emma. And,
Thank you.
it's just so true, isn't it? Having a dog in your life makes everything all that bit better, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And having 2 or 3 is even better.
Upselling. Before we finish, once again, well, I'll definitely come and visit when I'm in Manchester at some point.
Great.
Emma Billington, it's been a pleasure. Dogs for Rescue, please check it out. And thanks again for coming on and being our life less ordinary.
Thank you.